record Google Hangouts on the Mac with free software. By the way, this also works very well for Skype. So let me start my little presentation here. And if you have any questions, there's a Q&A app. Let me share my screen with you. Okay. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is what freeware you need to record Hangouts or Skype on your Mac for free. There's basically two sites you need to visit. One is Rogue Amoeba, their freebies page, and there you want to download Line In and Soundflower. These work, I believe, on just about any version of Mac OS X. They certainly work on Mavericks and Mountain Lion. I'm pretty sure they work on Yosemite as well, although I don't have Yosemite yet. You will need a bundled app, comes with OS X, called Audio MIDI Setup. You almost certainly already have it, and it looks like that. We'll get back to that in a moment. Now, what I'm going to show you is a simple way to do it with free software. There are better, more streamlined ways. There are also ways to do it with not very expensive paid software that might be a little bit better. But this works, and it works for Skype. Here's all the steps. Now, what I have connected right now is a USB mixer. And so that will show up probably on your Audio MIDI setup as a USB audio codec. The USB audio codec it's just the input from your mixer. I use a mixer. You don't have to use a mixer. You can plug a USB mic directly into your Mac. The ATR 2100 is very popular these days. There's other USB mics that are also quite inexpensive. You can plug that into your Mac, or you can use an analog mic. You can plug it into the mic port if you have one. And some people even use their earbuds from their iPhone or iPad. So the first thing to do is connect your USB mic or mixer. And also, while you're at it, plug in your headphones. You're going to want those for the Hangout. Make sure that all the participants in your Hangout are using headphones or earbuds as well, so they don't get this feedback into their mic. Then you set up your aggregate instrument in MIDI audio setup. So you go to MIDI audio setup, which again comes with OS X, and you want to set up an aggregate device. And you click plus button, and you get an aggregate device. You can see all the devices that it will allow you to add. And I'm adding USB audio codec. Again, that's my mixer as an input. I don't need the output, so I don't check that. And Soundflower 2-channel, which has both 2 channels in and 2 channels out. Soundflower is a virtual audio device that you can use as something like an audio hub on your Mac. It can glue the sound from one application to another. Line In performs a similar function, but it's a little simpler, and we'll get to that in just a moment. So I've set this up, this aggregate device. You generally want the sampling rate to stay the same, and the clock source Soundflower is fine. So usually the setup doesn't involve a lot of jiggery pokery. Just check the 2 things you want, and then you're done. Step 3, fire up Line In to relay audio from Soundflower 2-channel to the headphones. What this allows you to do is to hear the Hangout audio in your headphones without hearing your own voice. So you've got Soundflower 2-channel for the input, and the output is built-in output headphones. When you're done selecting them, hit play through, and you should start hearing the sound from the Hangout in your headphones. You also continue to hear other sounds that are routed to the headphones. For example, iTunes or whatever you have playing. Now, the next thing to do is start up your Hangout. Now, your Hangouts are, there's a little settings knob, and there you want to use your input audio source. In my case, it's USB audio codec. It could be your ATR 2100 or whatever other microphone you're using. And the output, here's the key thing. The little speaker icon, it should have Soundflower 2-channel. That's the whole trick. You save that. You want to go to once you've got that set up, you're ready to start your Hangout. You don't have to have started it yet. Well, in order to access this control, you'll have to start it. But there doesn't have to be anybody in the Hangout but you at that point. And then what you do, very simple. Your next step is to set up Hangout inputs to your micro mixers that we said. And then you want to go into Audacity if that's the free software you're using to record. Now, there are other digital audio workstations you can select. I'm picking Audacity because it's a very popular free digital audio workstation. It just came out with a new version that has a lot of improvements. And what I will show you here is not the improved version, but simply my version here, which is 2.0.3. 2.1, I believe, is the latest. Now, the key thing in Audacity is, for one thing, you want to make sure that in your preferences you've turned off playthrough. Unless you want to hear what you're recording. But typically what you want to do is hardware and software playthrough are turned off. And then you go to your little speaker here. That can be it can be Soundflower or it can be just your headphones. But the most important thing is this little microphone icon where it says aggregate device. That's the device we just set up in audio MIDI setup. And then you want to make sure you have 4 channels selected. Because you're going to be recording the aggregate of your stereo input to the aggregate device and the output from the Google Hangout. Now, those are neither actually really stereo, so this is a little inefficient in terms of storage. You can easily get rid of the unnecessary tracks when you're done recording. So what's next? Typically, you want to do a test recording. So you'll hit record on Audacity, this little red button, and you'll start speaking and verify that you are, in fact, getting all the tracks. Now, I don't have any audio coming in from the Hangout right now, so I don't have anything that I will see there. I don't expect to see anything, but I am seeing my own audio recording on Audacity. So I'm happy with that. So I'm going to stop it. I could delete those tracks or just keep them. I think I'll just delete them. And I'm going to start over. This might be a good time. You can save your project. I would save it to a folder that is not going to be synced to the cloud because that creates overhead you don't need. Okay. The next thing you want to do is just simply start the Hangout, make sure all the invitees are there, and start recording. So you just go into Audacity, hit the red button and say, hello, this is your host. And with us tonight are Bob, Ted, and Alice. And Bob, Ted, and Alice introduce themselves, and you go ahead and record your Hangout. Now, I'm going to record this just so you can see how it goes. The next thing that we do is when you finish the Hangout, just simply hit stop. Audacity will save all these tracks as files, and you will be able to edit later if you want to edit. Now, I do two podcasts. One is unedited and one is edited. And I will tell you, I don't use Audacity anymore. I invested $60 in Reaper, which I prefer, but Audacity is sufficient for any basic podcasting requirement. And you can, and it's actually quite easy to edit in Audacity. And but we won't talk about that today. That's another lesson. In fact, the best way to learn how to edit in Audacity is just to get in there and start editing, and you'll quickly learn what to do and what not to do. So now just some tips. You'll typically need a few gigabytes of space depending on the length of your Hangout. So make sure you have plenty of disk space. I recommend a solid state drive if you've got one. Not absolutely necessary, but it's good to have one. Turn off any background tasks or close other apps when you're recording. That will make sure all the bandwidth and all the CPU is going into what you're doing. Also, to cut down on background noise, mute your mic when you're not talking. So if you have something like right now, I have a washing machine going behind me, kind of noisy. I don't know if you can hear it, but if I just mute my mic, you can't hear anything. Also, encourage other participants to mute their mic when they're not talking. Use the chat. Hopefully you can see the chat on this Hangout. There's a little chat thing, this blue icon, and you can type over here, Bob, your volume is low. You don't have to say on the Hangout, Bob, could you sit closer to the mic? Just say Bob, type that, and then Bob will get it, right? You don't have to, therefore, you don't have to transmit boring technical things over the actual audio, which you'd have to edit out later. Saves you a lot of time. Editing, very useful, very helpful, but also very, very time consuming, especially when you start getting into taking out little tiny nits. It gets very, very, you'd be amazed how fast an hour will fly by. So use the chat. You can also use hand signals. Since you're only recording the audio, you can, you can, say, can't hear you, or get your volume up, or that's enough. Let's wrap up that subject and move on, rather than saying, okay, you're talking too much. Let's, we can use hand signals and chat or if, let's say, somebody on your Hangout is just not speaking up enough, you can just type, Alice, what do you think? Let's hear you. And Alice will up and hopefully and give you your opinion. So that's very useful. Turn screen share back on here. I like the way it gives you this infinite regress when you have screen share on. When you're recording, check Audacity or whatever digital audio workstation you're using to make sure you're still recording. Now, of course, I stopped recording, but I could record more, and I'd want to make sure that my progress continues. I don't know how many times I've seen somebody say, oh, I thought I was recording, but I lost it, or it wasn't recording. Check it. That's why you do a test recording to start. But always verify that you are recording before you go off and put the recording application in the background. And now, chances are your local audio coming from your mic is not going to be balanced perfectly with the Hangout audio. I wouldn't sweat it too much. If you're audible and the folks on the other side say, yeah, we hear you just fine, the levels are okay. Just roughly right. You can always fix that later very easily without a whole lot of work. So ask the other participants in the pod before you start recording, how do I sound? Too loud, too soft, distorted, and fix it. And also make sure their sound is okay. I'd encourage you to check out my podcasts. The two that I am the sole producer of right now are the Wow Signal podcast and the Unseen podcast. Okay, I'm going to take questions. Hopefully some of you are out there and listening live. If you stop screen sharing, are there any questions? You can use the Q&A app to submit any questions you have. No questions? I'll wait just a little longer. I know some of you might want to type. Okay. Well, I think we'll wrap it up then. It's only been about 18 minutes. That's fine. What I'd like you to do is, if you have any questions for me and you want to record a Hangout on the Mac, please feel free to email me. You can email me at wowsignalpodcast@gmail.com, and I'll be happy to answer your questions. And also, if you are a participant in the Unseen podcast and would like to become a host on the Unseen podcast, I'm encouraging people, after they've been a participant once or twice, to consider becoming hosts. This is a technique that might be useful for you if you have a Mac. What about Windows? Well, there are similar techniques that work on Windows. They don't use the same software, but or they might use Audacity. And we can talk about that in another Hangout. I'll get a Windows laptop in here and I will show you how to do it using a program called Voicemeeter, which is a nifty little bit of software. So until next time, I hope you'll check out the Wow Signal podcast and the Unseen podcast, and we'll see you there. Bye.